I sold a sawmill in BC, and then Joan and I traveled for about a year. We just went looking Canada, and I wanted to see Canada. We got as far as Toronto. It took us 6 months, so you can see how we stopped along the way all over Manitoba, Saskatchewan, and looked at farms. And I took an option on several farms in Winnipeg, but then finally ended up at MD with his ranch that was for sale there. That's where I bought the Barcy in 1966. It was an old-time ranch. I guess that's why I liked the old times. Everything was still old. We almost had to have fences to go from. They just took the gates down on the main highway before I bought it. Because people used to, that still was an old road. That changed after that. They fixed it up. I added to the house. Fixed things up, I guess. And that's all. I didn't do too much to it. After I kept the Barcy for six years, and then sold it. And that's when we bought one in Hannah before that, and I bought the farm. Before that, too, there was a farm in Carstairs. We come to Canada in 1930, and we ended up in Kenora, Saskatchewan. And the things weren't going that good there. Dad bought the seed wheat for $1.35 a bushel, and then the wheat got 35 cents. That's when the hard 30s come. By fall, it was 35 cents. And there was also a problem with the farm was rented. He come from Europe. He had no idea about wild oats, so he raised a lot of wild oats. Anyway, it didn't work out, and he went to the Paw, Manitoba, and we ended up in this here. We ended up in this house here. We got a car called Settler's Effect at that time. He could get a whole box car, and he rode in the caboose because he had a horse and a cow in there, and various equipment and just a little bit of something. And my mother and my sister and I, we stayed for 2 days in the boxcar. Of course, we weren't supposed to be there, but nobody knew. We were under blankets, and we stayed in January. It was 30 and 40 below, and we were in the boxcar for 2 days. And every time the train stopped, my dad ran out to see how the horse was. Of course, it wasn't the horse he was worried about. It was see how we were. But he couldn't not ride in a caboose because that would have tipped off the engineer that he had passenger. He couldn't do that. And then we went to, ended up in northern Manitoba, and we farmed there. And then in 1942, we moved to Sundre. And actually, Dad sold the first carload of wheat that was grown north of 53 to Churchill, Manitoba. There's someplace a newspaper clipping, but I just can't find it today. Yeah, it was in the first carload. Anyway, we got flooded out. There's pictures here from the dam that they built. It's a long story. And that's how we ended up in Sundre. And from Sundre, remember one year we got hailed twice. And I married Joan then. And I went a little bit into sawmilling. There, I bought a sawmill to build our first house. We built a house. We lived in the attic before that. And so then we built this house. And we wanted to buy a dairy in BC, so I went down there and worked on a dairy, looked after the dairy Well, he went to England, the man, but I didn't buy it. We just couldn't come to terms on it. He just didn't work out for us. So we went back to Sundry for a while, but I got to know the BC thing pretty good, and we went and moved the sawmill down there and started sawmilling. And sawmilled, I don't know, from 50 till 64. Had started with nothing, like in that book. It'll tell you in that book. We started with nothing. We ended up with, he says 40, but we had 65 men working. You know, like all books get a little bit changed. I don't quite agree with everything that he said in there. It was quite, but then I didn't. He never knew the insides of it. You only see what you see on the outside. It was very good. He did a very good job. He wrote things up.